As educators and leaders, we're constantly asking people to grow. We introduce new instructional models, we introduce new emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, new business plan ideas, and constantly evolving expectations. Yet, real growth doesn't come from focusing on what we can't do well. Real transformative growth happens when we focus on what we do exceptionally well and then using those strengths to be our engine to drive towards learning something new. Today we are exploring why strength-based growth is not only just good leadership, it's what leads to that transformational change that you want to see happen in yourself and with your employees, your students, your teachers. Welcome back to another episode 19 of In the Know with Mr. O. It's good to see everybody again. I'm really excited to be back here. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart with this strength-based growth initiative. There's basically three main factors when you're looking at strength-based growth. A lot of people kind of look at what they're deficient at, which is an important starting point. You want to look at what you don't have or what you lack in order to understand where you need to go. So I'm not saying that that's a foundational element that you need to have happen, but it can't be the entire brick and mortar of your foundation. You really need to use strength-based growth in order to understand how you're going to get to fill those gaps and fill those deficiencies that you may have identified initially, right? We all think about what we're not good at. We all think about where we need to improve, but rarely do we ever look at where are the strengths that lie in our individual nature or our company-wide process, our team, anything in the business or education world. Do we look at those items and kind of see how do we connect the bridge in order to make it to those goals that we have? So the first of those three items is identification, right? You want to identify what are the strengths that you have. Okay, what are the strengths that the team has? Through those identification measures, what you're going to be able to see is a collective of skill sets that you have. The next step, or the sub-step of 1B, I would say, would be to look at how do we connect and identify the strengths that we have towards what we're using, whether it is a new instructional model, whether it is can we use artificial intelligence to keep our autonomy and get us to a goal that could help us out or unlock an idea and not solely rely on that. Is there a new business practice that we could put in place that would actually make sense for my team to help us strive to improve on whatever initiative we're trying to get to? So you want to be able to identify your strengths. You want to be able to identify how those strengths bridge and connect to the item, product. In schools, we use different platforms and programs, curriculum. You want to be able to see if there's a connecting bridge to what you do well so that your employees, your teachers, your staff do not feel overwhelmed, and you could help them identify, hey, you do this well. Take a look here. This is a place or a prospect or a product that it will use what you do well, and then you will be able to get more buy-in from that business professional, that teacher, that educator, that anyone, right, employee of yours, because they will feel instantly connected with that product or with that initiative or with that movement, whatever call you, through that identification method. It's very important. That's step number one. Step number two would obviously be the integration, the actual work, right? Once you've identified what the strengths are and how they can connect to where you want to go, whether you're using a product medium, whether you're using a new business strategy with steps to solve, whether you're looking at different expectations, how could I take what my faculty, what my staff, what my employees are doing well, bridge the gap and connect them, and then create a plan that they can implement and use with fidelity and efficiency. That's going to be very important in that integration step. And then finally, the last step is going to be the behavioral change. How are you going to get follow through? How is the buy-in going to occur? How are the employees going to keep up with that? And that is going to be a system that you're going to have to evolve after that integration step to constantly keep on looking at and identifying new skill sets, new strengths that they may develop, but also ones that stand out from the old list of strengths that you can constantly use to kind of show, hey, you've done this very well, and then move the pieces of the puzzle in those places where you're going to get the most efficiency out of it. We do it all the time in education. education, looking at a subset in a math class of some concepts that students do well, and then looking at, okay, they're deficient in these areas of algebra. How could we use these strengths in some of the identified locations of algebra to connect to those weaknesses? If we can do that, and we could use some of those examples with some spiral learning or some ways where we can integrate those topics together and teach them not as separate things, but mold them together in a fluid environment, which I know business kind of does that a lot of the times as well, you're going to see substantial growth and change using that strength-based type of growth factor that I'm talking about. You want to stay positive. It's a positive way of integrating change and making people feel more comfortable with that change and more bought in with that change because they could relate to the change immediately instead of being fearful that something's going to happen or they're going to get something put upon them that does not make any sense to them and they don't understand. I've done it a lot when helping coach teachers on instructional change strategies, and they always buy in a lot more when you use those strengths for those examples. I've done it with some math teachers. I've done it with some other teachers as well in content areas, but you could use this in the business world. If you have a good communicator on your team, how could you use them with some supplemental materials that you may have or a new product and connect what they could say, how they speak, which way they speak, what clients they work best with, and utilize them in areas. And I'd like to talk about this more. Obviously, as you know, you could hit up my contact information at any way possible. Please like, comment, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And thanks again for everybody turning in to an episode of In the Know with Mr. O. Let's create the change that we want to be, everybody, and try to see that change moving forward. Positivity, peace, and love, everybody. Bye-bye.